Here.
Here. I can start over. Okay. City of Shawano Comprehensive Plan presentation by East Central.
in housing increasing. Currently, just over 60% of the housing stock is single-family detached homes, and projections are showing an increase of 715 households for the city between 2010 and 2040. And then that would accommodate as well for that population growth. All right. So in terms of looking at then the next chapter looks at transportation. So when we talk about transportation, we're looking at the overall transportation network and how we move people and goods throughout the community. In 2010, which was just shortly after the initial comp plan was adopted, the Shawano Cecil area was designated a federal urban area. That means the city is eligible for urban surface transportation block grant funding on qualified roadways, which is just one funding mechanism to help the municipality upgrade or improve its roadway system. There's a system that does pavement ratings, and according to these pavement ratings, about 13% of the roadways in the city need some form of structural improvement. Dave did make a note that compared to other municipalities, this is actually really good. So it seems that overall, thank you. Shawano's roadways are in generally really good condition. And then, as mentioned before, we also created a bicycle and pedestrian plan, which is included as an appendix in this comprehensive plan. Moving into utilities and facilities, one thing that we noticed that the city's landfill will be closing within the next 5 years and will become a transfer station. So this does open up some unique and new opportunities for that landfill space in the future. And then in terms of looking at current open space, in terms of park and recreational facilities, there's just over 100 acres of publicly owned park and recreational facilities. And then we look into agricultural, natural, and cultural resources. This is a very hefty chapter just because of everything we're looking at. Cropland and farmland account for about 7% of the city's total land area. We know that the city is located within the Wolf River Basin, which provides some really unique opportunities in terms of recreation and tourism. And then wetlands comprise just over 17.5% of the city's total land area. This chapter is really useful in telling us what are some of these considerations and how we use our land currently and moving forward. Looking into economic development, the largest employer in the city with 300 employees is Aerocast. And then we also look at what are the trends for people moving in and out of the city, looking at the inflow and outflow of employees. So besides the city of Shawano, the next place of employment for Shawano residents is the city of Green Bay. And it's a very similar outward trend as well of people coming in. I believe it's Green Bay that people are coming in from as well for the city of Shawano. Looking into land use. So this chapter talks about what is the current land use and then also what is that projected future land use. So there's a lot of bulk in this chapter that really helps vision how we're gonna use that land moving forward. Not unique to Shawano, housing and roadways account for some of the largest portions of developed land. And about 41% of the land in Shawano is not developed. This does include 192 acres of water in that calculation. But just note that there are opportunities for potential land growth, bearing in mind that there are some constraints in areas where you are able to develop. And then the next chapter is Intergovernmental Cooperation. So we know that what we do in Shawano impacts surrounding communities and municipalities and vice versa. So this takes a look at who are we working with, who are some of those municipal partners in surrounding townships. And so just some highlights is the city is served by 2 sanitary districts, the Shawano Lake Sanitary District and Shawano Municipal Utilities, and the city is served by the Shawano School District, which also serves some of the surrounding communities as well. And then the final chapter is implementation. So great that we have this plan, but this chapter really looks at how do we implement it? How do we make sure it doesn't just sit on a shelf and we're moving it forward? We do acknowledge that the comprehensive plan is a living document. So just because what we adopt today does not mean it has to stay in stone for the next 10 years. You can always make amendments to that comp plan because we realize that situations and circumstances and new opportunities arise. So just making a note of that. And then we also go through some implementation tables to provide guidance on certain activities that we want to accomplish along with what is that general time frame of moving those actions forward. And one thing that you probably noted in the plan that isn't as prominent on the slides is there are also a series of maps. And we'll talk about the land use map in just a little bit because there's a lot of substance in that map. So some key takeaways from this plan is the city is expected to grow at a steady rate with new residential areas occurring. We do see that growth rate being pretty healthy. You know, it's in the double digits, but not overwhelming. And you know, a big thing to make sure that we are implementing this plan and really bringing this plan into action is the recommendation of reviewing these implementation tables on an annual basis and compare that to the budget and work program development. So the future land use map, this is on the future land use map portion, chapter 8, I believe, of the comprehensive plan. And what we base that future land use map off of is the current land use, and then we do a series of calculations based off of what is that density that's occurring, you know, based on the different land use categories, along with what is that projected population growth, and that helps us to decide how much land do we project to be needed for these different categories over the next 20 years. So this leads us to know that we're going to see an overall increase in demand for land use in both single family and multifamily residential, commercial, and industrial. The one thing to note is that multifamily residential is already on pace to exceed the projected growth. With that development coming in, it's going to be 20 acres and 200 units. So as mentioned, these are projections, they're not predictions. And so it's really important that the city does keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening in terms of trends and people moving into or out of the community. So I know it's not the easiest to see on this slide over here, but this is basically the future land use and how we see the use of the land being moving forward in the next 20 years. And what you see on this map should really guide some of those future land use decisions that you make. A few things to note is there were 2 small edits that were noted to us at the Plan Commission that we will be updating in the final plan. These do not change the overall substance of land use or anything like that. One is just there's a small parcel next to Smalley Park that we're going to make sure that we have that dedicated to park space. And then Eddie or Dave, do you recall the other one? It was one of the residential properties.
I do not recall
Okay.
what the change.
Yeah, but just so you know, there are going to be just very small edits to the current land use that won't be any substantive changes, but just wanted to make sure that we highlight that for everybody. And then finally in the plan are a series of appendices. These just go through, you know, the survey that we do, the community survey in a little more detail, you know, along with some of the necessary documentation for the approval process. And then the biggest appendix that you will see is the bicycle and pedestrian plan. So the bicycle and pedestrian plan looks at the overall transportation network and then incorporates planning for all modes of transportation, including bicyclists and pedestrians. This includes, you know, enhancements or improvements to the roadway network by looking at where places people might want to access via walking or biking. And then it provides activity and program-based recommendations that complement that built network. I know that was a really quick overview of a really lengthy plan. Does anybody have any questions? Yep. Yeah, so what you see on this map is the boundary on the outside is actually the extraterritorial jurisdiction. So the city is allowed to plan for up to 1.5 miles outside of the boundaries. Given what we know about current conditions, we didn't go on planning too far outside of the city's limits, just because once again, this plan is updated every 10 years and looked out to a 20-year horizon, and just based on conversations, it didn't seem like we were expecting a whole lot of growth outside of the city's boundaries. Other things that we took into consideration is, you know, is there land that currently can't be developed on? You know, because there might be some soil limitations or wetland limitations. You know, so we do kind of identify that and try to account for that in the plan. But then really looking to what is that current land use, and then ensuring that any future land use that they're complementary and not necessarily conflicting uses. So in terms of calculations, things like water and stuff are just automatically kind of populated in the list. So we certainly aren't expecting growth to happen in the water. It was just something that fell within the calculations. Yeah, does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay.
So when you say future growth, are you referring to possible future annexing of some of these outlying?
So I will defer that to Eddie. If you'd like to answer that.
The boundary that she's referring to is more of that we have, as the city of Shawano, the ability to weigh in on zoning related changes that could impact our boundary. It doesn't necessarily speak to acquiring land, but it ensures that the city of Shawano has a voice in development that may occur that borders the city to ensure that there's like a cohesive use of land. So that's really the purpose of the extraterritorial zoning.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All the hard work.
Yeah, well, thank you for all of your work too.
Okay, well, excited to have this next possible action downtown Plaza. So,
Sure. Yeah, I can kind of introduce what we. So I'll help you out there, Mayor. So tonight we have Brandon Herbert here, and I believe we do have Blake via Zoom. Blake had another meeting he had to be at tonight, but he was going to try to be here at least for the beginning of this. That's why we have this here early in the agenda. But just kind of summarize, for the last 3 months or so, I think, our design team has been working extremely hard with staff to continue to take what we were looking at as, at that time, concepts and plans, and really putting some hard engineering to it. And I think Brandon's going to be able to go over and you'll kind of get a feel for just how much has been done to this point, and then looking at next steps and some critical decisions, honestly, that you're going to have to make this evening as far as moving forward with the plan, and then also kind of sharing where we are with the budget. So I think at this point, I'll kind of turn it over to Brandon, and if Blake's available, to just kind of give you a history of what's happened over the last few months, where we are, and then where we're kind of going from here.
Thanks, Eddie. Again, I'm Brandon Herbert. Blake is here. But I think I'll lead the conversation here to start. As Eddie said, going back the early spring, we had a steering committee that generated the concept for West Plaza and East Plaza building. We've progressed significantly with the design, planning on advertising this project December 10th, Friday, so about a month from now. The goal of is hopefully awarding the bid even at that plan is to try and give contractors plenty of lead time to start ordering. They'll know they have the job in January. Really is possible in the year, and then late summer, fall. The concept that we see on the screen here comes with a little bit of a challenge. There was some documents attached to the council packet today that showed what our cost estimate project was. Summary, about $2 million. The available funding at this point right now is about $5 million. We have roughly $500,000. That a $2 million price tag does include a 10% contingency, like I said, which is about $200,000. We definitely want to keep that in right now. I've heard of supply chain, labor shortages, material pricing, very difficult right now. So we don't want to necessarily do away with that. So we're sticking with the $2 million right now. Also included in the agenda packet was some in a cost opinion, I guess, was an alternate bid, associated price tag. Give it on the screen here as what those alternate bids were. The alternate bids identified are things that we thought we could break out, that if prices came in too high, we could strip these things out of the project, build them, still get the plaza, still satisfy the general design base, and still be able to build the plaza, everything. Also, for example, alternate 1 and 2 in Washington, those are things that you could do. Not like you have to build them right. You know, other things like alternate 5, putting walls in turf area, a little bit more difficult here. But we were trying to find things that still satisfy the design intent. So the 5 alternates would cost estimate total about $400,000. So we would still be about $100,000. So what that would mean that if bids came in as we expected, roughly about $2 million, we would not be able to build any of these, and the city would still have to come about 100 build the base bid. Of course, we're hopeful that bids will come in full. We want to overpromise. We're still searching for, not searching, we have other ideas about how to trim costs and add additional. These were kind of 5 main. I guess I can stop there. Yeah, so and something that we are planning to do from now until advertise the project without a month, continue to identify alternate hours to bid a project where we anticipate to be able to bid this project out city needs. That would mean we would try to identify about 100,000. The flip side would be if the city had additional funds from place, have more of a chance to build some. But this is just kind of the challenge that we face right now, and I thought it was important to present this to the council, kind of where we stand, how this project may help.
I think that's kind of where Brandon and my discussion has been, for the last several weeks. With building conditions where they are, there's a lot of things that we could, trim here, trim on the contingency, make the numbers line up. But I think it was important to both Brandon and Blake and with city staff, as you've seen some of our own projects come in the way they've come in, is painting the real picture of what these things are likely to cost and giving conservative estimates. One of the things that we were talking about today was, the last thing Strand wants to do, or Architecture wants to do, or especially the city wants to do is, bid out a base package where, you kind of say, this is it, take it or leave it, and then you go out and you get a number and it's significantly higher than what you're looking at. And so we do have options, and I was going to kind of lay those out, at least to get you thinking about them. Obviously, until we were able to get the bids in and really evaluate them, we don't know what they're going to be. But the city would have additional funding options. So and I'm not saying you necessarily would have to tap those things, but a couple thoughts that I had, we've talked through the budget process about utilizing fund balance for one-time type projects. We also are likely on an annual basis to have savings from other CIP projects when we do our major street reconstruction, which we happen to be doing early this year. Could potentially reallocate some of those funds. We also have several TIP districts that are doing significantly outperforming expectations that, you know, if you really break down the purpose of what those districts are is to encourage redevelopment. This has clearly been a key. Our downtown revitalization has clearly been a factor in the growth in some of our TID districts with bringing new businesses, bringing new residential. You could potentially tap one of our existing TIF districts for funds. So there's certainly going to be options down the road. I'm obviously not asking anyone to lock into that now, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand that while we're still going to trim and cut and to ensure that when we put out the base bid, that the worst case scenario type thing is we have enough to pay for it with what we have now. If when we get to that point, we really want to say, okay, you know, just throw out, we really think that alternate 4, those seat walls are absolutely important to the project, and without it, it's just not going to be the same project. Where are we going to find $75,000? Well, those are areas that you could potentially pull from responsibly without, you know, drawing too hard in one specific source. So that's kind of where we're at. You know, like Brandon said, our goal between now and when we bid is to get that anticipated number on the base bid down to where our budget number is to be totally safe. But then when we come back around and we get those numbers in, and you know, hopefully they're great. Hopefully we find a hungry bidder. Hopefully we find out, you know, that most of this is concrete and it's not being impacted nearly as bad as some of the other industries, and the numbers are less than what we're hoping for, and our 10% contingency can get us some of the alternates. That'd be fantastic. But if not, we want to make sure that we have other alternative sources at your disposal if you choose to.
We do continue to work this recently Monday. We're working alternate products, things that we can do and drop the cost down, but still give generally what, as an example, for seat walls. Originally, we had thought those would all be kind of put in place. Concrete, that's somewhat expensive compared to, say, precast that slab. So just as an example of things that we're trying to find ways to kind of rein this in a little bit, as we kind of talk through the open.
Another challenge too is, oh yeah, go ahead, Blake. I was going to mention another thing. You'll notice on this concept from previous concepts on the east side that the plaza got bigger as we were able to acquire the additional property, and what this is going to do to allow to really make that space even better attribute to the plaza with what they intend to do there to kind of bring in that element of play that was originally discussed in a lot of the concept meetings that we weren't able to do in the other area. We've now brought that in, so we think we're dead on, or feel like we really nailed the wishes of the steering committee and a lot of those elements that were brought up now. But again, adding space to the plaza, it added cost as well.
Right, thanks for bringing that. Yeah, the north part, just in case we'll have dug into the details there, that is, they got the new lot. We kind of expanded the concrete and the curb up into the space. There's going to be some permanent, either a slide and some musical, more of like kids play space on the west side, and then there'll be space side of what is it, mound? One side mound. Also worth mentioning, current of the green space. As artificial. Just anticipate that that's going to have such a high use. It's going to be very difficult quality for us. Intent there is to have program events, concerts, speakers, people putting on movies, lots of people, hopefully a lot. So we just thought that it was worth the extra money to have artificial turf where it's just low maintenance, can be nice to sit on. About it. Constant maintenance. But that's something to point out that
Say that was kind of high on my list as we looked. Some of the examples of different plazas that we looked at originally that kind of inspired us. When we looked back 4 years after they had been built, they had all replaced most of those high traffic grass areas with the high quality artificial turf because you just can't maintain it. Even if you irrigate it, the foot traffic on it alone just tears it apart. And they've come such a long way with the artificial materials, and maybe Blake can touch on that. I think the days of the old carpet, the green carpet on top of the concrete, it's not that anymore. This stuff literally looks real until you step on it.
I think Blake had to take off, but yeah, we've working with this product that not even like soccer, football, and I think it's really is the way possible more than grass. Great question. Obviously, it would depend on use, but I would say 15. I would hope. I can look into that. Okay. Not a stupid question. We all asked the same.
We all did. I said that we don't want that.
Yeah, because I'm a soccer player and playing artificial. We did not want that in anyone. Yes. It certainly could. So the footings for that are kind of in the front to the north. So you could add those. Those are, you can't see them there, but they are steel structures that are intended to look this big, long, near neck structure. That steel kind of relation like a wave almost. Those themselves could be added, certainly. Or you could also add something similar to strength apart. Or not a big, nice steel structure, but something wooden or just a smaller steel kind of just set on it. But even what we have kind of currently. There is an underdrain left of water. And yes, some people.
One concern for myself, I was on the steering committee, and the seat wall structure was pretty important because we wanted to offer as much seating as possible. And so I would hope that as you build alternate ways of structuring it, that if we can't do it another way, at least we wouldn't eliminate all of the seat wall. So I just wanted to make that, I mean, that's a concern of the steering committee, which was pretty adamant about having that added, so.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
That was my question too. Does it change the functionality of the space to lose those seat walls? I mean, is there still, my question is especially geared towards the eastern plaza, that big grassy area that you pointed out, because obviously that's where the stage is going to be, and so you do expect a lot of traffic over there. But I see the seat walls are just on the west end. Is that right? Or is that a seat wall like on the other side where it goes? What is it encase the whole mound? Like, what is the mound when you?
Yeah.
I mean, is it steep? Is it shallow that people could actually set chairs on it? Will it be flat if there's no seat walls there?
Yeah. So on the right here is three. That those were intended to be placed for fit and water feature overhead. So ground straight can function similar to like the splash pigeons. So people to kind of sit there and watch that. The rest of the mound, like if you were to go here to this circular circle here, that edge of the mound is flush with that grade mound. And then it goes up to about 4 feet tall, kind of in the middle of this green space, and then slopes back down to roughly flat again, kind of up. So the only place that it has any walls is but to go back to the other functionality question on the side, yes, it would dramatically change. Wouldn't have a lot of here. Would lose the vertical element. There, if you didn't do the hanging bench structure in the seat walls, it would be a lot of flat concrete with planting beds. Maybe you could mount, but it would certainly lose it. And I would also point out that recently we've been talking about doing each. For example, this southern steep area, that is really, in my opinion, because it kind of defines that edge of the path. It wraps around and down. Here is where we have fire pit sculpture. It provides some of the seating, permanent seating for the fire pit. That one is just really important space. Not that they're not all important. If you lost that one, you would lose a lot. So we were planning on taking alternate. Also, the value of the alternate bid shown on what was attached would go as the current thought. Make this one that I mentioned being very important for the space is still that casting wall. One continuous wall, but then these were going to be set on the front blocks that go with the spaces, which actually, and they have lights on them as well. But in terms of like, let's say there's an event, whoever could sit on one block. The other thing that helps with big issue with if there's a gap, I've told. But I don't know if shorter is better. But either way, some way you got to discourage people. So that it may help. Do you have any thoughts on that? I think it makes it worse. Oh. it's tough because we don't.
So maybe it'd be best to get these bids out and let's see where it comes in before we start, putting the cart before the horse, or
I think
taking things away from the project before we even know.
well certainly we're gonna figure out a way to at least bid them all as alternatives.
Okay.
Even if we're able to whittle down on the base bid, we'll work those into an alternative bid. So we're not going to say no to any of this at this point.
Right.
You know, so we'll know more when we get the bids back. But I also wanted to kind of plant that seed that you will have options when it comes down to it, as far as, you know, there will be another discussion about, okay, what do we really feel is extremely important? What do we really feel should be now, should be later? You know, specific elements that we feel are just too important, or hey, you know, well, we can do that later. All that conversation is yet to come. But we just wanted to kind of be real, and we talked about, we just wanted to be really open and honest about the state of the project. It's an awesome project, which is why it's going to be expensive.
Oh, Jenny, I have a question. Where the second fire pit could be, I thought there was a wall there where people were going to be able to sit.
There is that
There is?
that
Okay.
circular wall,
Yeah.
Brandon.
Yep, there's a little half circle on the side of it.
Okay, so that's still staying.
That would stay.
Okay,
So that will cut into the grade,
okay,
and then it'll kind of fan out around, and then on the sides of it, it'll kind of the turf will come down to grade. But yeah, that will be a permanent seat wall.
okay. I was just questioning, 'cause that's gonna stay to do. Right. Right, the little bistro chairs and whatever.
Yeah, so we have things planned where, you know, say on the south side of the Adirondack, over in this area, the outlets were full for the shrink overhead lights. So there's plenty of opportunity. Also, I did want to say that, you know, what we're trying to do here is responsibly bid. If we're not obligated any additional. So that's why we're trying to present. I just think it would be somewhat irresponsible to project estimates higher than our current knowledgeable available.
So what portion were you thinking there could be action tonight, or is it just discussion?
No action tonight.
Yeah,
Just
but-
an update.
Making
Just wanted to let you know, and then I guess maybe just touch on schedule a little bit, Brandon. You have that?
You said December 10th?
December 10th will be advertisement. Bid. And hopefully, according I believe the 13th.
Yes.
So I think, right, the reason, I mean, but obviously, project with this lighting, we want to leave it open for contractors to install. So to have the bids in and making it available for we would hopefully be able to have a special council. Could move it to February, especially if it's the bids come in, require a whole bunch of thought and discussions on it. Certainly could just wait till February, but again, we're trying to give contractors environmental support. Have it here and ready to install when they're ready to install it, and not be waiting on late.
Okay, are there any other questions for Brandon while we're through? All right. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate the update and thanks for the hard work. Okay, moving on. Is there anybody in a discussion for business forum? Okay. How about citizen recognition? Nothing? All right. Well, moving on, we'll move into the department reports. And I guess we could just start with the chief since he's right there and away we go.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The monthly and yearly reports were sent in. If anybody has any questions, I can answer any of those for you. A couple of updates for the department. Today, I met with the Police and Fire Commission, who approved the appointment of 2 new officers for the department, who will be starting one next week and another one probably early December or late November. So, which should put us up to full staffing. The other update is today I received a donation from a local business person who wished to remain anonymous to allow us to start our honor guard. Honor guard is a group of individuals who are flag bearers. That's something we've been looking at for a while, and when this individual heard of our desire, funded the program. So once again, the support from the community, city, and specifically the police department is outstanding. Unless there's any questions.
Pay for start on our
$5,650. Rough 5 cents. Yeah. And a decent sized amount for one individual budget. Well, that's one of the duties. Today I was at the graduation for one of our new hires from the Recruit Academy, and the Joint Honor Guard in Green Bay presented the colors at that ceremony. So those are the types of things that our Honor Guard will be able to do. They are available. There's a statewide Honor Guard association, so in the event that there's a fallen officer somewhere in the state, departments will send their Honor Guards to those unfortunate events. There's also non-negative aspects to the Honor Guard, parades, that type of thing. It's a community outreach. Some of the unfortunate events, we've had retired officers who have passed, and we've done what's called casket watches. While not a full Honor Guard type of event, we don't have the individuals with the type of uniform or the training to do that justice. So this is going to give us the opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you. Greg? No update? Okay, thank you. How about you, Scott?
Evening, Mayor and Council. I don't have a lot to say, but I'll just go with a few things that I have here. Leaf collection, I guess, is the biggest one. There was a lot of raking over the weekend, so there are a lot of piles out there yet. But we will have the leaf picker out next Friday, so chance to get out there and rake those leaves up. So construction projects are pretty well done this year. The last project we actually have going is the concrete crushing, and we'll be moving in next week up to the landfill. And it worked out pretty well, actually, that we've got all our projects done, all the curb and sidewalk now. We recycle and crush it for road base. So that project probably will run about 2 to 3 weeks, and that'll probably run through just the beginning of December. So with that said, the other thing, kind of a little bit play off of Brandon, Matt and I have worked pretty diligently on putting our projects together for next year. We're getting the bid package ready. I've been doing designing in the streets because we've been hearing through the grapevine that material weight on some of these is 3 to 4 months. So we want to get out there, get these projects bid, so that the contractor knows he's got the work and he can order the materials. So, that's really all I have. Anybody have questions for me? Questions?
Scott, with fuel prices the way they are going up, and I know there are some families out there, according to We Energies and SMU, there's going to be some families that are going to be cold. I know we have down trees in some of our wooded areas, and that they are welcome to stop by you, find out where they could cut free wood if they sign papers.
Yep.
So they just need to come by you, and you would point them in the right direction where they could go in and cut free wood to heat their homes.
Yep, that's a great point, Sandy. Yep, absolutely. They just have to come and take out a permit at our department, no cost, and there are areas within the industrial park that we allow them to cut. And absolutely, it's a win for us. Cleans up some of that down trees, and it's also a win for them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, anything else? No? Thank you. Matt?
Hello, Mayor, Council. 4 things that are pertinent to the community that are coming up. One is the holiday stroll, time of year where Franklin Park and downtown gets decorated. So we've been working with Lindsey Johnson and bid. The date to put in your calendar is Saturday, November 27th, from 3 to 5. There'll be lots of festivities. Santa Claus, elves, reindeer, horse-drawn carriages, mowers and fire pits, and different scavenger hunts, as well as all the lights and stuff that you've come to know. We'll be down there, and the big Shono Christmas tree will be lit up at that time as well. So the lights and things stay up from November 27th until kind of the first week after the holiday, but the event itself, again, is from 3 to 5 on Saturday, November 7th. So come and enjoy that. We do have a position posted at the rec center, so we're looking for a recreation supervisor, which is primarily responsible for the building supervision of the building when full-time staff are not there. We anticipate that being 25 to 30 hours of work, and have a starting wage of $14.50. So if you know people are willing to share that, obviously we'd love to have a good candidate join our team. 2 last pieces, even though it's coming in the winter, Dana Krause has been doing a great job of securing sponsorship for Thursdays for next year. To note, there's about $20,000 to $25,000 of private business sponsorships that supports bringing in bands and events like that. And I just like to highlight the 2 that have agreed to be our gold sponsors again. Christensen Printing and Menominee Casino Resort have both agreed to come back as our gold sponsors. To give you a parameter on that is $5,000 each. That event. And then the last thing that I guess you won't see in the community, but many of us have been working hard on, Leslie, Eddie, myself, Scott, Steve, Matt, just these 2 relatively large grants that would have pretty significant implications. The parks, Royal Park, replacing a lot of aging infrastructure while also adding new infrastructure that's needed, like accessibility, playgrounds, and restrooms, stands. So it's a very different world in the size of the grants that are being pursued compared to that we're used to. So pretty tremendous. To that extent, as with any project, you always hear all city staff talk about partnership and partners at the table. And so 2 partners that we have that have been that financially contributed are the Booster Club, the tune of about $35,000, and then the Shawnell Youth of $20,000. Secure points. Grants are about getting points. The more points you get, above the threshold. Kudos, as Chief said about other people in our community, kudos to these groups stepping up to hopefully help put us in a better position to be able to do that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I also want to just add something to the tree lighting at 5 o'clock. We're all invited to be there, and hopefully you can all make it. And Dave, we don't want to forget about you. Do you have anything for us this evening? Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to sound off public input. Anybody here for public input this evening? All right, and do we have any correspondence this evening? And anything for committee reports? Okay. All right, well then we'll move on to the consent agenda, which basically is gonna be the approval of the common council minutes, approval of application for temporary Class B beer and picnic licenses, and then the approval of road closure requests for the holiday stroll.
Move to approve the consent.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are you heading that up, Sandy? Oh, okay. Okay. All right, any other discussion? You know, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. Move for a approval of the monthly bills. Okay, so do we have any questions on the monthly bills? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Aye.
Okay, well, we paid our bills, thank you. All right, resolution and ordinances. We'll start out with ordinance 1998, adopt the 2040 comprehensive plan for the city of Shawano, which was presented to us earlier. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ordinance passes. We'll move on to resolution 100-21. Approve the proposal for the City of Shawano private lead line replacement program.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And is any further discussion from what we heard this evening? Okay, this will be a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, resolution 121 passes. We'll move on to resolution 10121. Approve the 2022 bid assessment rate. And that will be,
Is the assessment rate that the downtown business district puts together.
Mhm.
It is unchanged from last year at 270.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that rate? Seeing none, this will also be a roll call vote.
Grable, Bushel, Barco,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Stanky, Case.
Okay, so 10121 passes. We'll move on to resolution number 10221, looking for approval of salaries for the elected officials.
I will make a motion to approve resolution 10221.
We have a motion and a second. Is any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote on that.
Barco,
Aye.
Bushel, Grable, Caves,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Stanky.
Okay, 10221 passes. Let's move on to 10321. This will be for the approval of a purchase of a 2022 Dodge Charger pursuit vehicle for the police department.
Oh, on that note, I will.
Second.
Okay, so we're gonna be talking about 103 and 104. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion other than what you heard this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll take, do we need a separate roll call vote for each resolution, or we can do them both?
Nope, because the motion is to approve.
All right, just want to make sure we didn't split them. Okay, so let's have a roll call on that, please.
Stanky, Hoffman,
Aye.
Barco,
Aye.
Bushel, Caves, Grable.
Okay, so it looks like you get to purchase a couple vehicles that we may never see. Yeah, please order. Let's move on to resolution number 10521. Approve the Envirotech software upgrade, which I believe Scott will be talking about. Okay.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote.
Grable, Barco,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Stanky, Caves, Bushel.
Okay, 10521 is approved. Move on to resolution number 10621. This is to approve the request to combine parcels for Arthur G. Nelson Trust.
The next several of these are actually pretty similar. In this instance, this homeowner, property owner owns both properties, wants to combine them so they can add a shed. Right now, you cannot add a shed as a primary structure on a property not without a house. So just cleaning that up, getting combine the parcels so they can add the shed to their property. Helps them too. They get one tax bill.
I'll make a motion for resolution 10621 and 10721.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to do 10621, 10721, both combining. So 10721 was to approve the request to combine parcels for Kelvin and June Brockman's revocable trust. Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so 10621 and 107 both passed. Move on to 10821, approve the conditional use permit to allow Church of Acts to use 750 East Green Bay Suite 750 as a church.
Conditional use is required for churches as institutional uses to go into commercial properties. Everything was approved at Plant Commission. This is in the Shawnell Plaza. It's one of the, I think it's where eWork Pest Control used to be. A small congregation is upstarting church. So
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for 10821. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, resolution 10921. Approve the certified survey map for the city of Shawano and United Development.
well, this is what I hope to be the final certified survey of the property acquisition on the west side of the plaza. Lot 1 is the United Auto Care, automotive supply, and then lot 2 becomes the overall plaza space. So you can see on the bottom of the page from Main Street, the 15 feet through the vacated alleyway, and then the existing building on lot 2 is our bathroom. So this is now the full outline, approved outline, agreed to with all the surrounding property owners to make this happen.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 10921, resolution passes. 11021, approved certified survey map for Gene Darling and Hillcrest Development Hillcrest Development Estates, LLC.
So this is exactly as it sounds. Jean Darling owns a property. She's subdividing it into lots so that they can do townhomes up there. I believe they're in the process of starting those or want to build those relatively soon. Lots meet standard sizing for, there's 3 lots, and all of them meet the standard size requirements for what they're trying to do there.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excuse me.
Abstain.
Okay. All right, so 11021 passes. Let's move on to resolution 11121. This is to approve the payment to Viet and Company for the demolition of 214, 216 South Main Street. Eddie will talk about
Yeah, so the reason why we're separating out this $8,290 is because we have to pay for this separately from the full contract that was awarded to VEET for the demolition. After we had given them the go-ahead, which we thought we were allowed to do, it came to our attention that there was another publication that we needed to do prior to the asbestos removal. And so any work done before that publication was done had to be paid for from outside the CDBG funding sources. As it turns out, we had several conversations with CDBG folks, but it's just with the posting requirements, we weren't able to get it in time. And so this $8,290 of the total $150-some thousand contract needs to be paid for some other way. So talking it over with Greg, we think right now we can expense out of TID 4. We have ample room there to make that happen. Rather than try to convert it into a CIP or some other way, it was just easiest if we were able to expense it out of TID 4. The remainder of the project was all covered, and is being paid through the CDBG money that we got for the plaza. Correct. Which timing wise needed to happen. We thought we had everything done, but these CDBG projects are also new to us, and there was another, quite honestly, it was our miss. So right, yeah. So that's why this amount's coming before you. The remainder is being reimbursed through the CDBG money.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and as far as the discussion goes, you all understand that they're gonna take where the funding is coming from? All right, so for this one, then we'll go roll call vote, please.
Rabel, Barkle,
Aye.
Puccio, Hoffman,
Aye.
Stanky, Pate.
Okay, so resolution 11121 passes. We'll move on to ordinance 1999. This will be the repeal and recreate chapter 1 general government section 128, and this is for, I guess, changing the districts and wards.
So this is what we had discussed the last time, where because of the census,
yeah.
we need to do the redistricting process. The county has worked through their part, and so now no changes from the map that was presented to you previously. So this is just the verbiage that is within our code that explains the outline of the boundaries of each ward.
So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Did you have a question? Sam?
I have a question. Do these, if approved, do the changes go into effect immediately or the first of the year or after the new election or? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not right away.
Okay, so we have motion and second, and is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that ordinance 1999 passes. Ordinance 2000, looking to amend chapter 4 of our traffic code section 4-08 parking regulations as it opposes to Sawyer Street. So I don't know. Scott, you want to talk about this? Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ordinance number 2000 has been amended. And let's move on to the 2022 budget discussion for either Eddie or Greg. Greg, Eddie.
Yeah. So what I've attached is pretty much all the budget documents. One of the ones we discussed but didn't actually go over was the water and sewer, which are rate-based budgets. I know Greg has been putting the finishing touches on those. But for the most part, what you have before you with the budget 1.8 attachment budget workbook, that's the general fund budget that we will be planning to bring forward for approval. That's the budget we've substantially gone over, as well as the 2022 capital draft is attached as well. So I just wanted to bring that back with an opportunity if there was any final discussion we wanted to have prior to budget adoption next Wednesday.
Okay, do you have any questions on that, folks? If not, we'll move on to the discussion regarding TID 9.
Okay, so one of the things that we've been looking at as staff and as well as conversations with the SICDC and the RDA is that TID 4, which is our downtown TID, is currently has until September of 2022 and as its remaining expenditure period. So after September of 2022, there's a 5-year recovery period that it's still open, but we can no longer make expenses out of that TID. So with all the momentum that's going on downtown and all the projects that we anticipate continuing to happen, I've been working with John Cameron, who's just joined us, with Ellers to look at what are the best options and what are some potential things we could do to ensure that we still have a funding source or a TID source for our downtown. So we've been we've been looking at a lot of different options, whether it be expanding the existing TID, creating an overlay, or just simply creating a new TID as an option, potentially in a much smaller footprint. So we continue to have that ability to do public financing on projects in our downtown. And so what you have before you here this evening is a quote for a feasibility study with Ellers to do that work, to essentially go through what our potential options are, and how we could bring forward a potential new TID in our downtown. At this point, you're committing nothing more than just a feasibility study to do so. And so I have John here. He's been able to join us. I don't know if he has any additional things to add. I don't know if he caught everything that I said, because he was at another meeting this evening as well, so he was just able to jump back and get back on. But I guess this is new as a discussion item at the council. We have been discussing this recently at the SICDC and the RDA, knowing that our period of being able to incentivize and development or even fund public projects downtown is coming to a close, and we're trying to get this potentially in advance of doing that, so there's not a period where we don't have the ability to do those things. John, the question was about why don't we just extend the TID? One of the things we think the reason why we are looking hard at the idea of doing a new TID on top is the TID 4 boundary is immense. It's from Cook Park all the way almost to the county building, and a significant amount of that would not need to be in the new TID. So the benefit you'd have in creating a new TID, not over the exact TID 4 boundary, is once the expenditure period, which ends in 2028, a good portion of that would then go back on the tax rolls. So you would get the benefit of property values going back on the tax rolls, not all of it. We would be very strategic in the properties we pick on Main Street and potentially outside of Main Street in downtown, and then going north. But it would be significantly smaller than what TID 4 is now. So I guess the next steps really are determining the proposed property boundaries, understanding, if they meet the state requirements for assessed value, and that's all the work that we'd be looking to do with John and Ellers over the next couple of months, and then bring this back to you for potential discussion.
Eddie, is there a particular time frame that you would have to make this decision within, or we would have to make that decision?
We kind of just sketched out a timeline with John. We could probably get it approved as fast as February,
Okay.
But it also, there's not necessarily a specific timeline it would have to meet to make it eligible to be instituted.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, and then, right now, one of the things that's come up recently is their potential development north of Main Street, or north of the river, or north of the channel. Right now, our TID doesn't extend that far. I think we would look to extend it to some of those areas that are currently green space, where no matter what happens on there, it becomes instant value to the TID. So we'd be strategic and probably working around properties that are significantly improved already, and working on identifying properties that are likely to develop and provide quick tax base increase. And so that's kind of where John and I now go back to the drawing board and start working on drawing the boundary and figuring out, you know, what the best boundary would be for this district. Thinking ahead for the next 20 years on what might happen.
Okay. Any other questions on this? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to committee member comments or new business.
I do need an approval on that.
Do you need approval?
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? I guess this probably should be a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll move on to number 20.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Committee member comments or new business to be considered for a future meeting? Anything, guys?
Mr. Mayor, with tomorrow being Veterans Day, I just think it's proper that we thank all of our veterans for their help in keeping us a free country and allowing us to have meetings like this. And I would ask anybody that talks to a veteran tomorrow or anytime throughout the year, please thank them for their service.
Thank you for that, Kevin. And anything else you'd like to be discussed this evening? Okay, seeing nothing, we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Great, that was, I meant to bring that up earlier today, and I spaced it. I always love Veterans Day. Oh, they're, of course, my wife.
They're
She finds
hazard
who can't pick
something that out of control.